inviting me to this important discussion. As I mentioned, I'm Chris Kesler, founder of Black Flannel Brewing Company. We're a 15-barrel brewery and full-service restaurant located in Essex. Last month, our executive chef was named a semifinalist in the 2022 James Beard Awards. We are the only We are the only brewery in the United States with this distinction.
That's fabulous.
Thank you. We were very excited. So
when did you open? Because I lived in Essex forever.
July of 2020.
Going to an opening or something.
Yeah, July 2022 or July 2020 is when we opened.
Okay, yeah, I was there.
Yeah, great. I'm also co-founder and partner of Black Flannel Distilling Company, which is located in the same footprint as the brewery and restaurant. We are the first and only brewery distillery combination in the state. So today I'm here to tell you the story of new Vermont businesses that opened during the pandemic and to advocate for less restrictions with higher maximum allowable awards, removal of the January 2020 date as recommended by VITA, and letting the program administrators do their jobs without being handcuffed so this money has the highest potential return on investment for the state. In 2017, we began planning the planning required to open the businesses. And in 2018, we decided on the location, the Essex Experience, which is formerly the Essex Outlets. We created a plan to launch a brewery and full service restaurant and a distillery all in one location that would be a one-of-a-kind experience and a destination for travel and tourism. To open, we invested our own funds, secured $800,000 in private investment, and received $2.1 million in loans split between VITA and Vermont Federal Credit Union. Our planned startup costs were $3.15 million. We took on additional debt right away as those costs ballooned to $3.3 million so we could add previously unplanned outdoor spaces. Black Flannel delivers a unique on-location experience, and we've had to pivot a great deal in order to adjust to opening safely and successfully during the pandemic. Additionally, in 2020, out of necessity, I started a beer distribution company to sell Black Flannel beer to retailers in response to restricted brewery traffic that was directly impacted by state-imposed but necessary COVID 50% occupancy restrictions. We hired our first employee in January of 2019, and construction began in November of 2019, with plans to open by May of 2020. By the time the pandemic shut things down, we were employing 7 people full-time. In June of 2020, the state allowed 50% capacity for restaurants, so we were able to hire and train an additional 33 employees and opened on July 1st, 2020 at a 50% capacity. We opened with 40 employees who have since earned an average wage of $25 per hour. We understand and agree that restrictions were necessary for public health, and we know that this committee realizes the importance of delivering much needed economic relief directly to small businesses that need the most help. But because we opened our doors in the middle of 2020, Black Flannel fell through the cracks for most COVID financial relief programs. When PPP first opened early in the second quarter of 2020, we were able to obtain a very small amount based on the 7 employees that we had at the time. We were also able to obtain a $7,000 EIDL advance grant, equating to $1,000 per employee. Other than that, we had not qualified for any other relief funding, not even EIDL loans, until the ACCD Bridge Grant Program last year. Lack of qualifying for relief programs was due to the requirement of showing economic injury between 2019 and 2020. Though we were not generating revenue in 2019, we have clearly been significantly impacted by the pandemic. We also did not qualify for the second round of PPP because of new restrictions and requirements put on the program at the federal level. Then came the federal SBA's.
So why did you not qualify for the?
Because PPP's second round put a requirement that you had to show a decrease in revenue in one quarter between 2019 and 2020, and we couldn't do that because we didn't generate revenue in 2019.
Right.
Yep.
So I hope you don't mind if I
interrupt
you go, because you have a good story to tell. You know, one of the, I guess, arguments for limiting it to businesses that were operational prior to 2000, I can't remember the date, January 2020, is it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is because saying that if people went into this with their eyes open, that they were facing a pandemic, you know, should we then providing relief. It sounds to me like you had a lot of previous work.
We did, yeah. We started planning in 2017, did all the fundraising, we started construction. So we'd already spent, a couple $1 million going into 2020.
So why are you cut out of this by this date? Well, you weren't operational. Is that the
Correct. Yeah, we were operating in that we had employees. We had hired 7 employees to help start up and planning, and we didn't start generating revenue until we opened our doors. So we had to buy all the equipment. We had to do the engineering, work with construction companies. So we hired our head of brewing operations, our head of restaurant operations. We had a general manager. So the small group of us were the people who brought the division to life.
So I'm just trying to understand this, and everybody
Sure.
to explain this. So it's not, the date is not whether you're operational, but whether you had income as of that date.
Correct. Right. So in order to show economic injury, they wanted SBA wanted to show tax returns 2019 and 2020, but because the economic injury was determined by your revenue. So if you were impacted by a loss of revenue between 2019 and 2020, then that was their justification for economic injury. We were able to open, we planned and opened safely, but we were significantly impacted by the 50% restriction. If we were able to open up at 100%, if there weren't a pandemic, then we have a 150 seat main room restaurant. We're limited to 65 seats plus employees, so 75 total. So it impacted the ability for us to generate the revenue based on our plan, but we still had a fairly robust expense structure. So the first 2 years we had a fairly substantial loss. But now that things are starting to open up, we're seeing that turn around significantly. So we're, and part of the story, if you don't mind me continuing, I have more that I can tell you about how things progressed.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. No, that's okay. So next came the federal SBA RRF program. That's the Restaurant Revitalization Fund last May. Based on our tax returns financials, the SBA determined that we, Black Flannel Brewing and Distilling Companies, qualified for just over $1 million in RRF grants. If the program had been adequately funded by Congress, then we had received these grants, it would have effectively reversed the impact of the pandemic and given us a fighting chance at long-term survival, positioning us not only to grow, but to thrive. We, like 70% of Vermont businesses that qualified for RRF, received nothing.
Right. And that's because it ran out of money, right?
It ran out of money, yes. So I think they had 26 billion allocated, and the full need, if they had covered everything, was I think in the 80 billion range. So they had talked about immediately doing a restaurant revitalization RRF replenishment, somewhere between 40 and 60 billion, but it never happened. It never materialized. So Vermont's congressional, Senator Leahy, Sanders, and Representative Welsh were all fully in support in trying to push that through, but it never happened. So we're still holding out hope, but it's pretty much been washed away at this point, I think. So then came the ACCD Bridge Grants program last year. And unfortunately, the restrictive requirements that were built in through the language of Act 9 meant that we only had the possibility to receive a grant at a maximum of $150,000. This maximum was not enough, nearly enough for a company our size. Because only specific fixed expenses were allowed by the program, our actual award was just $82,000. This equates to just over 2 weeks of payroll for a company our size, which is a drop in the bucket, as you can imagine, for a company that has an annual expense structure that approaches $2 million. The undersubscription of this program wasn't because the need wasn't there. It's because the program was so restrictive, so it was ineffective in getting funds into the hands of those who needed it most at the level they needed it. The pandemic forced Black Flannel to take on a debt that we hadn't planned in order to open, and additional COVID-related expenses put us in the red by a few $100,000 from day one. We have been working to chip away slowly at operating debt and payables that accumulated during COVID, some of which we've been carrying for close to 2 years. Vendors have been very patient, but some have run out of patience. It will be very difficult to settle up without a level of assistance that other operators in our industry have received, hundreds of thousands, and in some cases, millions of dollars. The timing of our opening or who owns the companies should not have been a limiting factor when considering us for adequate level of relief funding. We are on track to achieve cash flow stability in the coming months, but we have a huge and potentially devastating handicap that we need to overcome. Black Flannel is a dynamic and well-managed company with a fantastic reputation for providing quality beer, food, spirits, and we are starting to gain national attention. We are poised to boost additional travel and tourism to the region. We were able to achieve 75% of our budgeted revenue goals operating under the state-imposed 50% capacity restrictions. This is a great sign that our original budget model was conservative, and the pandemic directly impacted the ability for us to achieve or exceed our original goals. My wife and I have personally exhausted our life savings to keep 40 Vermonters employed with high average wages, and during a pandemic, no less. But our personal resources have run out. Black Flannel is doing fine at the moment, but under the wrong circumstances, like another COVID variant, we could very well be forced to close our doors. Should we fail due to the financial impact we've experienced, not only will we be forced to close our doors, resulting in the loss of 40 high-paying Vermont jobs, who will then be a burden on the unemployment system, but we will personally forfeit all collateral, including our homes and other investments we've spent a lifetime to build. I believe this committee and the state have the best intentions to try to help struggling businesses like ours that have been directly impacted by the pandemic. The ability for the state to better distribute funds at the variable level of need that exists makes sense. Some needs are much higher than others. Artificially handcuffing program administrators with restrictions means that once again, available funds will not be put to their best use. Smaller awards, as in only up to 150,000, may mean they get to a higher number of companies, but an inadequate level of funding means some of us at a higher level of need may receive smaller awards and still be at risk to close. So as you design it, I advocate for reallocating as much of the $26 million from ACCD Bridge Grant Program to the VITA short-term forgivable loan program as possible. Impose less restrictions on allowable expenses with higher maximum allowable awards. I recommend what was originally being discussed, which is up to 500,000, and remove the January 2020 date requirement to support new Vermont businesses that opened during the pandemic, and let VITA program administrators do their jobs without being handcuffed, so this money has the highest potential return on investment for the state. Help Vermont businesses not only survive, but grow and thrive. Thank you for your time. So I'm happy to answer any other questions you have.
How are you doing now?
We're doing well. I think things are starting to open up. And, we're seeing January, we had one of our biggest weekends since we opened, which in January for a restaurant is pretty phenomenal. So we're seeing signs of new life coming in and new people are hearing about us, and we're busy. We open 7 days a week. We had previously been open 5 days a week. We have been pretty lucky and fortunate so far to attract a lot of really top talent, and who in turn bring in employees for line cooks and service staff who are all really fantastic. So when we're firing on all cylinders, it really helps.
How long in advance do I need to call to get a reservation?
You can actually, if you go on a Wednesday, you look at, we should have Friday and Saturday reservations, but if you wait till Friday or Saturday, usually you're out of luck.
We may need to do a midweek celebration.
So I'm glad to hear that you overcame all this adversity. Have you looked at your budgets for the past year, and what do they shake out to for 2021? Are you going to have to pay any taxes?
No, because we had a loss, so that'll be okay. But I think for the coming year, we actually are putting together, what we're seeing so far. We have a budget for the year, and we're starting to see that we're exceeding that on a month-to-month basis as far as the revenue model goes. So that's a good sign.
So when you say you have losses in 2021, are you saying that's because you had substantial losses prior that you carried forward, or how do you do operationally?
Yeah, operationally, we were actually close to break even last year, but we went into the year If you remember, in 2020 in November, things really shut down. So only one family per table were allowed. And so that essentially cut us to about a 25% operating capacity. And that happened between November of 2019 through February of 2020. And maybe March. So the first quarter of the year, it was a pretty substantial loss, but then we were able to turn that around for the final 3 quarters of the year. July, August, October were all, we were able to achieve greater than break even, and in some cases much higher than break even. We had a good profit in some of those months. We also did benefit. I didn't mention before that there was a state arrearages program for energy, for gas and electric. We had a few months outstanding at one point, and in the state that those grant programs took care of some of those months. So that was a nice assistance that we received.
So I guess I just wanted. Do you have anybody else have any questions?
No, I'm impressed that Chris, did I really hear that you meant 75% of your revenue projections operating at 50% capacity?
We did, yes. Yep. And I think this year we're going to exceed that. Yep.
No, that's well managed. I'm impressed. But what I'm also hearing is it's taken a huge toll on your personal finances, that you basically floated this.
Oh yeah. I purchased an old church building near Five Corners, Essex in 2014, renovated it, and it's commercial office space. And I had a lot of equity built into that. I refinanced it and put all the money into Black Flannel. So yeah, we're fully leveraged at this point.
Yeah, fully leveraged.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
So Chris, nice to see you, and I have had the privilege of being at Black Flannel. It's amazing. It's a real community gem and resource, as well as really great food and beer. And I've been asking a lot of businesses, especially of your size, with the 150 and the 3 months versus 250 and some other amount of months, what for you is worth your time and investment? What would help on the scale that you need it to be helpful? Does 250 make it worth your time? Does the 6 months help? Whichever is what is a helpful number for you?
I think being as reducing the restrictions as as well as possible, I guess. For us, I think when we first learned about this program, we heard that it was going to be 500,000 maximum allowable based on your size and your operating, and Vita would look at your financials and the true needs. So I think there's going to be a lot of small businesses out there that are similar to us that opened in the pandemic. They're going to just need $15,000, $20,000. Some are going to need $80,000. And so that's part of the reason I think that the ACCD program was handcuffed, and it didn't was allowed up to 150, but it was so restrictive. It only allowed certain fixed expenses, and so if you allow for other operating expenses, payroll, we really didn't get much PPP. So if you allow for either PPP and or cost of goods, for example, these are the lifeblood of our businesses. So I think if you let Vita administer it up to 500K and with more allowable expenses involved, then I think that'll have much more impact. For us, certainly, I mean, any amount's going to be worthwhile. We're going to discuss that when the time comes, and even if it's just a small amount, any little bit's going to help. But what's going to make the most impact and put us in the best position moving forward to help ourselves grow, but also contribute to the state economy, is to have something at a higher level, like closer to 500K for the restaurant and a smaller amount for the distillery. It's a smaller operation, so.
That's helpful.
Thanks.
We have probably a lot less specificity in this bill at this point than we've been talking about. There's some guidelines, there's a cap, and here, but the overall purpose of this bill is in this bill, and it says is to support businesses experiencing continued working capital shortfalls as a result of COVID-19.
Mhm.
Just, well, that's operational shortfalls. So I'm wondering if you have continued operational shortfalls, given that you say we're doing well right now.
Right. Actually, it should be, I think, broader than that, in my opinion. Those who have been impacted really need some assistance to kind of dig themselves out of the hole that was artificially created for them. That's where we are.
Right. So we've had some correspondence that says, as you said, you put money up personally, and we've had some that they had to forego their child's 529 plan or savings for retirement, and they want to be compensated for that, bring them forward. The bill goes further on to say that that your operating costs should threaten the capacity of the business to weather financial hardships and result in general financial insecurity due to the COVID-19 public health emergency. And I guess, when this program started, it was really focused on helping businesses survive. It sounds like people are saying, well, we have survived, but we want to be made whole or partially whole for past losses.
And I mean, there's a trickle down effect. We have vendors who have been waiting, a long time to get paid, and we've been able to work with them. They've been very patient, but if we can pay them off, then a lot of them have been in the same boat where they've had to lay off their employees or cut back operations, which affects the supply chain, which then drives prices up. So there's a whole ecosystem here that getting the adequate level of funding to companies like ours, I think will help to improve the general conditions for business in the state overall. So, and that's why I say, it's not just a matter of trying to get any kind of personal compensation. We're not talking about that. We're talking about just positioning our business to be able to survive, grow, and thrive into the future. So, does that make sense?
Well, it does, to the extent that giving out these loans works that way. You just need some language to make sure that's where the money goes.
Right. And I think, in my experience working with Vita, they're great judges, as far as they've got the financial analysis capability to look at any business model and any situation and make good decisions on where that money can be best allocated. So that's why I do advocate for, don't handcuff them through language and legislation. Just let them operate and do what they do best.
So you're suggesting that they be given, essentially, other than maybe a cap, carte blanche deciding who needs the money the most?
I mean, if
right now, an applicant can come in and say, I'm eligible under this, and I'm here, and I'm eligible, even though their needs might not be as great as your needs, and
sure,
has to be funded. So you're talking about that kind of discretion?
Good question. I mean, I would say yes, but then I haven't really thought through everything for sure. But I think just making sure that you don't limit it to like what happened with the bridge grants, where there were maybe 6 or 8 different categories of fixed expenses that were allowed, and a couple of them were actually overlapping, related to internet expense, your cable bill and whatnot, and based on.
We're opening up all expenses.
Right. We're using
right.
operating expenses, and Cassie has suggested we get rid of fixed expenses. We've heard that. I guess to go, I think Cassie feels there are enough guardrails so that we're not going to be. I thought Cassie's testimony yesterday was very good, but she has asked, and I hear you saying you want a no date because. No date, that we want to focus on operating expenses, that you want, you'd rather have our compromise amount of 250. I mean, you'd love to have 500 as a cap.
Sure.
But 250 is better than 150, and the
yes.
6 months is better, more reflective of the loss. Of the
Absolutely.
loss.
Absolutely. Yeah. And putting in, little restrictions, like, for example, the 2020 date restriction is precisely why companies like ours fell through the cracks in other programs.
I'm interested in the understanding better, help me understand the operational costs of 6 months as being a cap. What kind of margin do you work on in terms of your receipt revenue versus your profit margin?
It depends on what cost center we're looking at. I think if for beer, for example, I think we do about a 20% cost of goods, maybe 25 in some cases. Some IPAs go a little higher, into 33%. Food costs have gone up. They were averaging 32% before the pandemic, and they've skyrocketed to an average nationwide of 42%. We've been able to keep it within 42%, sometimes dipping into the low to mid 30s. But it's unusual because there's been a lot of increased expenses for the cost of food costs. The distributors have had to increase their costs because of a lack of supply, high demand. So I think profitability wise, we're able to manage it and keep it in check to a degree, but we do have the cost of malt has just gone up the last 2 months. We've seen two increases. So now the profitability of that 20 to 25% is now, the cost of goods is now inching closer to 30, 35% on average. In some cases, a lot higher depending on what you're producing. For spirits, same thing. It's a pretty high cost of goods when you take into consideration the malt or the base sugar, and then the process and the time involved to create that, the labeling, the packaging. So that gets over 50%.
I guess I was more interested overall in terms of what is your costs, overall fixed and operational costs versus revenue. I guess I can
I see.
What is all your enterprises together, whatever, what is your total operation and fixed cost?
Right. So gotcha. So in the grant program last year, when we applied, I think our monthly fixed cost that were allowed under the grant program was $27,000 a month.
Right. And
so if we'd added in operational costs, that would have been probably 10 times that. It comes out to, I don't have the, let me just do a quick calculation. So
10 times 27,000 a month is like 200.
So we're probably looking at $150,000 a month in overall cost structure. And so the fixed cost was 27,000. So that's 27 divided by about 18% is the fixed cost of the overall cost.
So the total per year for fixed and operational costs would be roughly what?
I'm sorry, say again?
Total operational fixed costs for a whole year would be
times
what?
12.
Times 12. So about 324,000, between 320 and 350.
No.
For the full year.
No, I thought that doesn't make sense. I thought you said it was. Are you saying those are a cost per month or per year?
Well, you asked about the fixed cost, and we had estimated 27,000 per month for fixed cost. Per month for fixed cost.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So that adds up quite a bit. I mean, the 20.
Yeah, 324 for the year.
Well, that's $324,000 right there, plus 150 a month of operating costs.
So we're looking at like $2 million.
Yeah, we approached 2 million. I think.
2 million.
Okay,
yeah, last year I think we were at 1.85, 1.9 in that range.
So 6 months, if that's the cap on your business, went from if we go to 3 months to 6 months, 500,000 as a cap versus $1 million as a cap based upon that factor.
Right. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
That was very helpful.
Incredibly articulate.
Great, thank you.
And if you're making us hungry and thirsty.
Well, just let me know anytime you want to come. I'll give you the full tour. I love giving tours, showing off the place.
So I have one personal question on that. I thought I went to your opening and it was in that small shopping center across from IBM, not in the.
Oh, okay. I think you're thinking First Republic. They're in Essex as well.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah,
So
Black Flannel.
You're in the mall with all the shops, Lang Farm.
Correct. Yeah. If you come out of Hannaford and look straight, you'll see Black Flannel. We're at the other end of the same set of buildings as the Essex Cinemas.
Right. Okay.
And I mean, you should see what's going on there in general. The growth and the companies that the whole complex has been reimagined to experience-based destinations. There's a wine bar and restaurant now. New restaurants opening up April 1st called Bramble. We have an art gallery. We have Whole Food store. We have just a lot of different interesting local operators there now, and so a lot of eyes around the country are on this development because they're these kinds of plazas have been going out across the country, and they're looking at us as a potential blueprint for redeveloping their centers and renewed development in those in areas which are kind of in decline. So
Yeah, I was just on the phone this morning with Teresa Davis, who's working on Barbarossa, which is an experiential art installation in the same place, tied to other places not in Chittenden County, to create a regional destination art experience. And there's all kinds of music and events over the summer. It's really been a huge success story, revitalizing our whole region.
Yeah, well, Black Flannel has become a community hub, and all the different stores and the plaza in general has become a community hub with the live music. And they have a green with a barn stage that we have larger events happening there. Our Oktoberfest last fall. We have another one coming this year. Our second anniversary celebration will be there in July, and we had 800 people come through for Oktoberfest last year, so that was nice.
I guess I have one question, which I don't know if you're prepared to answer, but if you got a $250,000 grant, you have off the top of your head what you would do with it?
Sorry, say again.
I said, if you got a $250,000 grant, off the top of your head, what you would immediately do with that money?
Probably pay off some of the vendors and the debt that we owe, that we've accumulated. Like I mentioned, we're heading toward operational stability, or we're at that now. So we're not too worried about that at the moment, unless again, as of course, something else happens, like another COVID variant. But
do you have loans outstanding?
Oh yeah. We still have significant, most of the principal loans, because the first 9 to 12 months, Vita and VFCU both allowed us to do. They extended the interest only period. And they've been really good about working with us for that. So helping in our cash flow expense structure has been good. But we started paying both principal and interest last year, and have been able to keep up with that. But it's it's still a challenge though, trying to get some of that other debt that we've accumulated that we need to really pay off those vendors. Sooner than later would be great. So.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's take a 10-minute break to 20 to